This is my grandmother, Miss Mary Humes.
This is my grandmother, Miss Mary Humes, who I'm going to be interviewing today.
How you doing, Erica?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm fine.
Let's start off with our personal questions. First question: where were you born? Did your mother raise you? Where did you grow up at? Were you born in Baltimore? What kind of activities did you do for fun? How many siblings did you have? Were they all raised with you?
Okay, let me answer those questions first. First of all, I was born in Southern Maryland, in the St. Mary's County, Maryland, in a small town called Drayton. I grew up there. Yes, my mother raised me. I have 5 brothers and 3 sisters. And what did we do for fun? We worked most of the time.
Like what? What kind of work did
Most of
you
the
do?
time, we got up in the morning early. We cleaned the house. We always clean the house first after getting dressed. And we'd always, we lived in the country. So the boys had outside work to do, farming and growing veggies, and the girls had the inside work, you know. The boys had to go cut wood and bring the water in because we didn't have running water in our house, no electricity in our house. We had wood stove and kerosene lamps, and the shades had to be cleaned every morning, and the lamps filled. Uh, Plenty of wood in the house beside the wood stove. Had to have water. Sometimes we had to go a couple of miles to get water, bring it back by the buckets, and we had to have water for cleaning and for bathing and washing. So most of by the time we finished all of our chores, there was not much time left over for activities. But we played softball and jacks and old maids because my mother didn't like for us to play cards. And we also went to church. Um, all of my brothers and sisters were raised with me. My mother was a housekeeper, and my father did whatever odd jobs that he could find to do.
So where was your father? Was your father in your life?
My father was in my life until I was about 12 years of age, and then he and my mother separated, and he moved to Baltimore. My mother continued to raise us in St. Mary's County, and then work was hard for her to find because she was a domestic uh, engineer. That's the big word people use now. But she was cleaning other people's houses and taking care of their children. Then she moved to Baltimore, moved us to Baltimore. By then, my older sisters and brothers were grown. Uh, so there was Alice, she was grown with her family. Francis, Louis, and Charles no longer live with us. They were the older ones. I'm the middle child of 9 children. Uh, our tradition basically was always having family dinners together. We always went to church on Sundays. We had dinner after church. We weren't allowed to clean, wash, iron, sew, do anything on Sundays but go to church, eat. And since we were children, we were allowed to play softball on Sundays. Uh, we always had Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter dinner. We had Easter egg hunts when we were little. But we always, at dinner time, we prayed. Our living arrangements, wow. Sometimes we lived in 2 rooms, and there would be about 9 of us. We had pallets, quilts and blankets that we would put on the floor, and we would all sleep on the floor. Sometimes there might be 3 or 4 of us in the same bed, sleeping together. Um, so we didn't have a lot of money growing up, but my mother was a hard worker, and she believed in God, and she raised us to believe in God.
Okay, that seemed like a lot. I like that. Let's go to the context questions. What was your education like? Was there any obstacles that you had to go through in schools based on race? And were the schools segregated? And can you explain?
Uh, I loved reading, so at the age of 4, I was going to school with my sister. We went to a 1 schoolroom building. There was They had first graders to 12th graders in the same building, that one schoolroom. And we had two teachers. Uh, no, there were no whites. Our school books came from white schools that the whites had discarded, so there were torn pages. The books were dirty. Uh, see Jack run, see Jill run, look at Spot, those kind of books. So, but I left school, and finally, I guess by the time I was, I guess in the 5th grade, they finally built a school for blacks. And no, we still went through the same thing. All of our materials were me downs from the white schools. We did not have new books, and all of our teachers were black that I could remember. Our principal, well, he wasn't black, but he could pass for white. Uh, yes, I knew about Little Rock, heard about Little Rock.
Little Rock 9.
Little Rock 9, and I was really, really proud. I was really elated that finally, the blacks would be able to have the same kind of education that white children had. Because in the black schools, we were always told, that we weren't going to amount to much. If a black child said, I want to be a doctor, the teacher would tell him, you can't. It was expected that maybe some might come out to be teachers, but we weren't encouraged or given the opportunity to decide what we were going to be or what we could be, or we weren't told that the world was ours if we just reached out for it. We had limits on everything that we did back there, even to the stores that we could go in and shop.
Is there any differences about your parents' education and yours?
Yes, my mother only had a 3rd grade education. My father was an orphan, so I don't know much about him, but I don't think he had very much of an education either. I finally graduated high school, and I'm close to getting my BS degree if I ever go back and finish. I also have some certificates in drug abuse counseling. I also have a certificate in ward clerk, and I've also had sign language, beginner sign language, and I've had a lot of courses in child care. So my mother did go back, and she went back to night school, and she got a 9th grade education. So, I was very proud of her for doing that. And she always believed that we should all have an education and that we should all serve God and love the Lord.
Alrighty then, moving right along. Making meaning questions. What was it like being black growing up, and would you say that you were high, middle, or low class, and why?
Where I was raised, I really didn't pay too much attention. I just knew that blacks were, it's like blacks were in their place, knew their place, and that was it. We didn't try to go into white stores or white restaurants or bathrooms or anything. It's just that where I grew up, there was the white section, there was the black section. Usually when we came in contact with whites, if we were working for the white man or if we went in a store that he owned. And so I didn't really know the difference or really knew that there was segregation until I came to Baltimore. And I guess still we were in our neighborhood, black marketing area. And I guess I was just about grown before I realized that there was that I was being treated different from the whites. Because then going downtown, I would see the whites only signs. Couldn't go in restaurants, sit down and eat, or sit at a counter and eat, uh, things like that. So I didn't really pay too much attention to segregation or realize that uh, I was, being different, being treated different
So how did that
than
make
someone else.
how did that make you feel?
But then when I found out, wow, it really made me feel, I don't know, like just because I was black, that I wasn't as good as somebody else. But then I always would tell myself that I was just as good as anyone, that I could sit down and eat with a bum who grew up on the streets, or sit down and have dinner with the President of the United States. I never told myself that I couldn't do, that I wouldn't do, that others were better than I was. I never thought of myself as being low class, because we were poor, but never low class, because I thought that I was just as intelligent and just as smart as anyone else. So no, I wasn't low class or middle class. Poor, yes, but didn't even realize we were poor, because whatever we had, we always had enough to share with other people.
Well, if you've been through a lot, this since you were little, since you've been growing up. Well, I'm glad to get some questions answers out of you.
Yeah, I hope that this will help, because nowadays young people have the advantage to get education
For free.
free,
Mm-hmm.
and the best education, but don't take advantage of it. They complain and complain. You don't have to. You go in the kitchen or bathroom, you push a button, the water comes on. You don't have to go out and get water. You push a switch, lights comes on. Push another switch, you have heat. And it's just that everything is at their fingertips. You just have it so good until you don't realize just how good you do have it. So maybe it's about time that you stop complaining about life and thank God for life, and try to make the best of everything. Please get an education. Whatever you do, get an education.